Voidmage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps, Voidmage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Voidmage Gamer's channel. Hello guys, welcome back to another Commander deck tech video. This is going to be from the new set M20, Rienne, Angel of Rebirth. People are going to probably comment on the pronunciation. I typically don't care. It's a fictional character, get over it. But the card is pretty cool. It's more tame compared to some other options, like everyone's going to play with Yarok and Kaikar because they combo, they storm, they do all that other nonsense that everybody does already in things like competitive EDH. They want to win as quickly as possible because they think that's the definition of having fun. This is a lot more tame, and it already allows you to do something that's really cool in Commander, which is fool around with killing other creatures, sacrificing creatures, abusing ETBs by getting those creatures back to your hand, or even just getting more cast triggers. That's another thing you could do. Rienne, Angel of Rebirth, is Naya colors, which is something we haven't seen in a while. Naya can be pretty bland and flat out boring. I'm not saying she's super exciting, but she does do something really good that we haven't seen before in Naya, and that's encourage aristocrats. Whenever another multicolored creature you control dies, you return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step, which should be your hand. So if you think about all of the ways that you can abuse that, we have things like Qasali Pridemage that already see a ton of play in the format for just sacrificing it for that 1 mana. You can destroy an artifact or an enchantment, and then with Rienne, at the beginning of the next end step, you get to return it to your hand, which is the big downside to this, and it's a reason that should encourage you to play with Flash. Make it so that you can cast your creatures on your opponent's turns. And a way that you could do that is with Vithian, Champion of the Wild. She gives your creature spells Flash, some other good abilities, but that's the main reason why she's in here. Could also go with Vidalcan Orrery. I just wanted to put a Planeswalker in here. But not to be underestimated, other multicolored creatures you control get +1/+0. If there's anything you take away from this video, never underestimate an Anthem. I can't tell you how many games have been won because of anthems and how many games have been lost because people haven't realized that they have anthems currently active. It is so often the difference between KOing an opponent. Not to mention that in 3 colors you have a lot of access to other anthems. We have Wilt-Leaf Liege and Boartusk Liege. Nothing crazy, just going to give your other creatures +1/+1 if they're red, if they're green, if they're white, and it does stack if they happen to be all of those colors, which it should be no surprise the majority of our deck is going to be multicolored creatures. We of course have some monocolored utility creatures littered in there as well, but we want to focus on good multicolored creatures. Tolsimir Wolfblood, yet another anthem. You get the whole point here. We just want to make our creatures really threatening and powerful, and a lot of that's just going to be making Rienne like a 7-powered creature and potentially threatening commander damage. It might not be a direction you anticipate from this deck, but a 5-powered flying creature is going to do some significant damage. Now, a reason why I like a commander like this is because it encourages play with cards that you probably wouldn't see before in Commander. If we're just going to go over really decent creature options for this deck, something like a Wild Cantor. Given more time playing with this deck, who knows, it might not even be in the final cut, but being able to sacrifice her to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool is pretty cool because then we can just return her to our hand with Rienne's ability. I mentioned Qasali Pridemage, but we have other really janky stuff like Goblin Legionnaire. We have 2 activated abilities on a 2-mana creature that is also multicolored. You probably haven't seen this in Commander before. Sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to a target creature or player, or sacrifice it to prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player. May not seem that big of a deal, but you have options. Something you have seen in Commander a bunch is Saffi Eriksdotter, which if you thought she was busted before, try returning her to your hand at the beginning of the next end step, when you can also use her to bring back another creature from your graveyard, sack that creature again, only to end up with those same creatures back in your hand. Get multiple uses out of your creatures, keep a full hand, something Naya and other creature decks struggle to do. Creatures that are multicolored that have really good sack abilities that are also really important to play. Dauntless Escort is a must-have in this deck. You can sacrifice the creatures you control, gain indestructible until end of turn. We also have Loxodon Hierarch. Sacrifice it to regenerate each creature you control. It's of course not going to save everything. You do have to worry about exiling removal, of course, but the average board wipe that doesn't specify regeneration is usually not going to be enough. And another card you're probably not going to see a lot of in Commander is Skarrgan Skybreaker. Bloodthirst 3 creature, so you have to deal damage first, which shouldn't be difficult. Comes into play with 3 additional +1/+1 counters, so you should have a 6/6 here. With Renne's ability, you're able to bring it back to your hand. He's also going to get bigger because of your anthems too. So you have a creature that for 1 mana, you can just deal that much damage to a target creature or player, which is just ridiculous. Now we are playing a bunch of other multicolored creatures, and a lot of it's just going to be utility, dealing with artifacts and enchantments. Something like Harmonic Sliver and Knight of Autumn. They serve the exact same purpose in this deck. Knight of Autumn's a bit more versatile, however. Getting to cast these over again, get their ETBs, it's so valuable. But we also want to have a bunch of sack outlets, because a lot of these creatures, they just don't sacrifice themselves. So we do have something like Brion Stoutarm, where we can sacrifice another creature, deal damage to a player, we can gain some life because he has lifelink. We also have Devour, which is an interesting mechanic, where we can sacrifice creatures to get more +1/+1 counters. Thromok the Insatiable can be gigantic because of this. Dragon Broodmother can give us massive dragon tokens, and returning the creatures that we happen to sacrifice is an added bonus, so we're not really losing a lot of creatures in the long run. And within Naya, we have some really decent sack outlets that are going to make it easy for us to get rid of a lot of these creatures so that we can reuse them from our hand. Altar of Bone is a decent sorcery, basically the creature version of Diabolic Intent, so it's a lot worse, but it just happens to work out in this deck. We have Greater Good, which is actually really good because Renne does give those creatures +1 power, makes them even bigger so we don't have to discard all of the cards that we draw. We have some versatile instants like Fight to the Death and Mercy Killing. We can wait for combat, decide what we want to do. We could just straight up sacrifice one of our creatures with Mercy Killing, get a bunch of elf tokens. If you want to abuse something, you could of course use Sneak Attack to cheat something into play. Even if we have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, we should be getting it back to our hand with Renne. And to take advantage of the fact that we only have that one creature that's important, if we're able to sacrifice or destroy everything else, we should be able to keep a full hand. So I highly recommend you play something like Divine Reckoning, Single Combat, or Tragic Arrogance. Sacrificing all of our other creatures is perfectly fine. If we're forcing our opponents to give up a lot of creatures, that's the main point, is we get all those creatures back to our hand. Now, something that's really good about the deck is that it's not just about the aristocrat theme. You of course have the multicolored theme, which is a big thing in Ravnica. It's also a big thing in Alara. So we have things like Hero of Precinct One, a monocolored creature, yes, but rewards us for playing multicolored spells by giving us human creature tokens. We have Gloryscale Viashino, gets +3/+3 whenever we play a multicolored spell. So until end of turn, you could have a massive Gloryscale Viashino. Find a way to give it some kind of evasion, it's going to be even better. Knight of New Alara, each other multicolored creature you control gets +1/+1 for each of its colors. We have Urza's Filter, multicolored spells are going to cost up to 2 less to play, making Renne only 3 mana to cast the first time. And probably one of my favorite cards in the whole deck is Tome of the Guild Pact. 5 mana, taps for 1 mana of any color, but whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you get to draw a card. So that right there is an amazing engine, and it rewards you for playing a deck like this, because a lot of decks don't play that many multicolored creatures, believe it or not. And as far as lands go, it's your typical mana fixing. I would recommend playing something like a Kessig Wolfrun just to threaten commander damage, make it even easier to utilize something like a Gloryscale Viashino, something that can get massive, make it even bigger. It's going to cost a lot of mana to take advantage of most things, but it's an option you should have in your deck. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for the deck tech. Not going to be super powerful, of course. You do have things like Yarok and Kaikar in the same set, which are just combo commanders, storm commanders, the usual nonsense they keep pushing out there. I like playing something a little bit more tame, something that involves playing a game that might last an hour or so. I appreciate having fun, and something like this looks like fun to me, because we have a ton of multicolor theme cards, but we don't really take advantage of them that often, or we don't have commanders that can help us take advantage of them that often. And Renne does that with giving an anthem and helping us return them to our hand. Really cool angel. I know some people were disappointed it wasn't angel tribal, but for some reason they thought that was more interesting than multicolor tribal. You can still end up playing something like Sigarda and Gisela in the same deck. It still could work. It's not going to be as on flavor as it really should be with the multicolor cards. But anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.